What if I told you that the Qur'an speaks about Jesus in ways most Christians have never even heard of? Words that change everything we thought we knew. Stay with me, because what you'll hear today might shake your understanding forever. When people hear the name Jesus, their minds often rush to the image shaped by church sermons, paintings, and traditions. For centuries, Christianity has presented him in a particular light as the Son of God, the Savior who died for the sins of mankind. But the Qur'an, a book revealed over 1400 years ago, presents a perspective that is both familiar and strikingly different. It honors Jesus in ways that would surprise many Christians, not by diminishing his greatness, but by clarifying who he truly was. The Qur'an calls Jesus by names that are filled with respect: Isa ibn Maryam, Jesus, son of Mary, Al-Masih, the Messiah, and even Kalimatullah, all word from God. These titles reflect honor and dignity, but without attaching divinity to him. Instead of presenting Jesus as God himself, the Qur'an emphasizes his role as a chosen prophet, a messenger who called people to worship the one true God, the same God worshipped by Abraham, Moses, and all the prophets before him. Even more surprising are the details. Did you know that the Qur'an describes miracles of Jesus not even found in the Bible? One powerful example is the story of him shaping a bird out of clay and, by God's permission, breathing life into it. The text highlights again and again that these miracles were never by his own power, but always by God's will. For Christians who may have only heard one version of his story, this Quranic description can feel like a revelation. It doesn't deny Jesus. In fact, it affirms his miraculous birth, his power to heal, and his status as the Messiah. But it reframes his mission not to be worshipped as God, but to guide humanity back to the worship of God. This is the Jesus of the Qur'an, a figure of light, respect, and truth. And as we dive deeper into what the Qur'an actually says, you might find yourself rethinking everything you thought you knew about him. One of the most striking parts of the Qur'an's description of Jesus is his miraculous birth. Just like Christians believe, Islam also affirms that Jesus was born to Mary without a father. But the Qur'an goes further by highlighting the spiritual depth and divine wisdom behind this miracle. Maryam as Mary is portrayed in the Qur'an as a woman of purity, devotion, and strength. When the angel appeared to her with the news of a child, she was astonished. "How can I have a son when no man has touched me?" The reply was simple yet profound. When God wills something, he only says, "Be," and it comes into existence. This shows that the birth of Jesus was not a natural event, but a direct command from God, a reminder of his limitless power. What makes this description unique is how the Qur'an connects it to earlier examples. Just as Adam was created without a father or mother, God created Jesus without a father. Both are miracles of creation, and both point to God's authority over life itself. The Qur'an's account also reveals the emotional side of Mary's struggle. She withdrew in solitude, burdened by the fear of what people would say. Yet at her most desperate moment, God comforted her, providing her with food, water, and reassurance. This not only highlights Jesus' miraculous birth, but also honors Mary as one of the greatest women in history. Through this story, the Qur'an teaches that Jesus' birth is not evidence of divinity, but evidence of God's supreme power. His very existence is a sign, a living miracle to remind people of the one who creates from nothing. The Qur'an paints a very clear picture of who Jesus truly was. Not God, not the Son of God, but a chosen prophet of the Almighty. While many traditions elevate Jesus beyond his human role, Islam restores his identity to what he himself emphasized: a servant and messenger of God. From the Islamic perspective, every prophet was sent with the same mission: to call people to worship one God alone and to live a life of justice, compassion, and truth. Jesus fits perfectly within this line of prophets that includes Noah, Abraham, Moses, and Muhammad, peace be upon them all. He was a link in the same chain, carrying the same universal message of monotheism. What makes the Qur'an's description striking is how it honors Jesus without exaggeration. It acknowledges his miracles, his wisdom, and his closeness to God, yet it never confuses his greatness with divinity. This balance is important. It shows that respect does not require turning a human being into God. Islam also highlights that Jesus himself never claimed godhood. Instead, he consistently pointed to the Creator above. His prayers, his miracles, and his teachings all directed people toward God, not toward himself. By presenting Jesus as a prophet, the Qur'an protects the purity of monotheism and preserves the essence of his true mission. In this way, Islam offers a perspective that is both reverent and logical. It keeps Jesus in the honored place he deserves as Messiah, teacher, and miracle worker, while making it clear that divinity belongs to God alone. For Muslims, this understanding not only deepens respect for Jesus, but also strengthens the connection to the timeless message of all prophets. One of the most fascinating aspects of Jesus in the Qur'an is the way his miracles are described. Just like in Christian tradition, he healed the blind, cured lepers, and even raised the dead. But the Qur'an adds a powerful detail that changes the way we understand these acts. Every miracle was performed only by God's permission. This distinction is key. It shows that while Jesus was given extraordinary powers, they were not his own. They were gifts from the Creator, signs to prove his prophethood. Even the Qur'an mentions a miracle not found in the Bible: Jesus shaping a bird from clay and, by God's command, breathing life into it. This vivid scene is meant to remind us that he was never acting independently. Instead, God was working through him, just as he had empowered other prophets with signs suited to their times. For example, Moses was given miracles that challenged the magicians of Egypt, and Muhammad was given the Qur'an, unmatched in eloquence and guidance. In the same way, Jesus' miracles spoke directly to the people of his era, who were deeply impressed by medicine and healing. His acts demonstrated that ultimate healing comes from God, not from human skill. By emphasizing, by God's permission, the Qur'an makes a clear point: miracles do not make someone divine. They are signs, not proofs of godhood. Jesus was a servant of God carrying his message, not a God performing on his own. This perspective both uplifts Jesus and safeguards the oneness of God. It reminds believers that while prophets may display wonders, the source of all power is the Creator himself. At the heart of the Qur'an's description of Jesus is a message that echoes through all of history: the call to worship one God alone. Islam emphasizes that Jesus, like every prophet before him, did not come with a new religion, but with the same timeless truth: pure monotheism. The Qur'an highlights that Jesus' mission was not about creating rituals centered around himself, but about reminding people of their Creator. He called his followers to righteousness, compassion, and obedience to God. He pointed them away from idols, traditions, and human-made ideas, and directed them back to the one who gives life and sustains the universe. This message of oneness is not unique to Jesus in the Qur'an. It is the same message carried by Abraham, who rejected all false gods, and by Moses, who led his people to worship only the Lord. By placing Jesus in this prophetic line, Islam shows that there is no contradiction between him and those who came before or after him. Their mission was always the same. What makes this teaching so important is how it strips away centuries of confusion. Instead of debating about Jesus' nature, the Qur'an shifts the focus to his words and actions. His prayers, his reliance on God, and his teachings about faith all point to a servant devoted to his Lord, not a being demanding worship for himself. This perspective doesn't diminish Jesus, it elevates him. It shows his loyalty to God's message, his dedication to truth, and his role in guiding people back to what really matters: recognizing and submitting to the one God. In the Qur'an, Jesus' true message is simple yet profound: worship the Creator, not the creation. One of the most powerful and unique aspects of the Islamic view of Jesus is the belief that he is still alive and will return before the end of time. Unlike the Christian narrative of crucifixion and resurrection, the Qur'an teaches that Jesus was neither killed nor crucified. Instead, God raised him up and protected him from his enemies. This sets the stage for his eventual return, a return that carries deep spiritual and global significance. In Islamic tradition, Jesus' second coming is not about starting a new religion or replacing Islam. Rather, it is about restoring the truth that has been clouded by centuries of distortion. When he comes back, he will reaffirm the oneness of God, clarify misconceptions about his identity, and stand as a witness to his own message of monotheism. Another important part of this belief is his role in establishing justice. Jesus will return during a time of great turmoil and falsehood, when oppression and deception are widespread. His presence will bring balance, exposing lies and guiding people back to faith in God. He will unite humanity under truth and peace, defeating those who spread corruption and false worship. The Qur'an presents Jesus' return as a sign of the approaching end times, reminding believers that history is moving toward a final accountability. For Muslims, this belief is not just about prophecy, it is about hope. It shows that truth will ultimately triumph, that God will never leave his creation without guidance, and that justice will prevail. Through his return, Jesus once again takes his rightful place, not as God, but as a servant of God, chosen to lead people back to the light of truth. We've now seen a side of Jesus that many people, even lifelong Christians, may never have heard before. The Qur'an does not ignore him, nor does it downplay his greatness. Instead, it brings forward a version of his story that is both familiar and opening his miraculous birth, his role as a prophet, his incredible miracles by God's permission, his unwavering message of monotheism, and the promise of his return before the end times. This picture of Jesus is deeply respectful yet free from exaggeration. It gives him honor as Messiah, teacher, and miracle worker while protecting the oneness of God, the same God worshipped by Abraham, Moses, and all the prophets. What makes this description powerful is that it resolves the confusion surrounding his identity. He was never meant to be worshipped. Rather, he was meant to guide others toward worship of the Creator. For Christians who hear this for the first time, it can feel like a missing piece of the puzzle. The Qur'an doesn't contradict the reverence they hold for Jesus. It completes it. It reminds us that true greatness is not about being divine, but about fulfilling God's mission with truth and humility. And perhaps the most important takeaway is this: Islam does not reject Jesus. On the contrary, it upholds him as one of the greatest figures in human history. But it restores him to his rightful place, not above God, not equal to God, but a servant of God who carried his light to the world. So, the next time you think about Jesus, remember this perspective. The Qur'an invites you to see him not through the lens of centuries of church debates, but through the timeless message of God himself. A message of pure monotheism, hope, and guidance. If this changed the way you see Jesus, imagine what else might be hidden in the Qur'an that you've never known before. Sometimes the truth isn't far away. It's been there all along, just waiting to be heard.